I just want to thank everyone for coming. I delayed this event. I usually do it in February, and I really wanted to talk to a live audience. I'm really kind of tired of Zoom and all that goes on with the virtual world. So I appreciate the patience on hearing the state of the city. I do want to thank the Chamber also for setting up and organizing this event. And Ohio Means Jobs for the sponsoring. So it's one thing that the Chamber always is a great partner with the city, and we always look forward to doing this event together. I usually start my State of the City with something comical or something interesting that happened in the life of a mayor. I usually get really interesting emails, different things that happen. Unfortunately, 2020 didn't really create any real crazy or funny situations. I mean, we lived in a world for a period of time like everybody else did. No gatherings of 10 or more. That was the whole, all around the city, all around the state, all around the country. Social distancing. I think we're all really tired of hearing about social distancing. That's something that at City Hall, we try to do as best we can. Temperature taking. So every employee has to take their temperature when they come to work every single day. Every visitor that comes to City Hall takes their temperature, writes down how they're feeling, all this fun stuff. And then we had a pretty intense mask policy. So very strict. This is one of our service guys. He's not real happy right now. But now, all kidding aside, our team at City Hall has done a great job with masks. We've got a new HR director who's been helping enforce all that. But it's been a really challenging year for all this criteria at City Hall. So today I'm going to talk about really, unfortunately, I know you've heard enough about COVID-19, but I want to share a little bit about the city's response and what we did. And then I'm going to go into some financial data that will spend most of our time, and then I'll do some brief department updates. So our response to COVID. March 9th is when we had 3 cases show up in the state of Ohio, and Governor DeWine declared a state of emergency. That started everything rolling with the city. Quickly, the cases rose to an average of about 266 per day. Around March 16th, the city administration met, department heads. We were locked in conference rooms talking about what we were going to do as really as an organization to try to deal with COVID. We purchased laptops so that people could have at-home work opportunities. We divided our service department between 2 different 14-day shifts. So we had quarantined for 14 days, half of our service department. We brought them back and we did the other. One of the main things that we did that I think a lot of other cities may have followed once they heard was we gave every full-time employee 80 hours of sick time in their bank. A lot of cities were sending people home quarantining on administrative leave, and then you've got essential workers, police, fire, or wastewater treatment plant workers, all saying, well, these people are going home being paid. And so cities got in kind of an interesting situation with their employees, with their unions. And so we came up with this, and it actually ended up working out really well because it was fair to every employee, because we didn't know at what time someone may get COVID or may be exposed and have to be quarantined. So we went ahead and gave them those 80 hours up front. Our facility closures. We closed City Hall to the public. Our fitness center closed on March 16th. We closed the golf course. It was delayed in opening. We eventually opened it, and I'll talk about the golf course a little bit later. All of our playgrounds, we caution taped off playgrounds. We closed courts. We took down nets. We put boards over basketball hoops. The banquet center here, the restaurant, closed down completely. Our outdoor water park was closed with no plans of opening at the time. We ended up eventually opening it. And of course, our most high-risk group, our senior center, also closed. From a budget and staff reduction, we got together and we started talking about what the financial impact of COVID would be. I think every business felt it. And us, we knew that we were going to feel it from, we rely on the business sector to be productive and healthy. And when we saw that they were laying off and we were getting letters, we knew that that was going to impact us. So we had about $1 million of capital reduction and basically postponement of some of our capital projects. We did not hire any seasonal employees, and I'll talk about the service department. They had a really rough year last year. They rely on about 15 seasonals that we did not hire. We limited seasonals here at the golf course and didn't hire anywhere around the city. We had an initial layoff of about 36 employees, and I have to say that that was probably the most difficult thing that I've ever done, both personally and professionally, was call 36 people and let them know that they were going to be laid off. It's something that I never expected to have to do as a mayor, and I've never had to do in any of the private sector work that I had. We were fortunate enough to be able to bring back 18 to 19 of those employees, but there are still some permanently displaced employees with the city at this time. Our safety department really helped in trying to curb some of the overtime. That's something we focus in around the whole city. And of course, we have a hiring freeze. So the only people that we're replacing at the city are people that we lost. Cancellations. This is the most difficult slide because this is what I love about Twinsburg. These are all the things that really makes Twinsburg special. All of our youth sports, Rock the Part, our concerts, a lot of our Easter events, holiday events, Luminosity, National Night Out, our fire department open house. All these things got canceled with no hopes of actually doing them. And so Twinsburg was a very solemn place last year. Limited reopenings. So in May, we started opening up courts and different things, and we did find this guy hanging out, wanting to play pickleball. But it's one of those things where we started looking at what was happening and really the push for outdoor activity. So we did start opening up a lot of those playgrounds and courts and a lot of the parks. The fitness center, and I give credit to Jen and her crew, really did a fantastic job getting the fitness center prepared to open, because the restrictions that a fitness center has are just crazy. And I'll talk a little bit more about the fitness center later, but they did a really good job making sure we could get that open. Waterpark, Brandon did a great job of setting up a system that we could actually open a water park. I mean, that was really important to me, to be able to get the water park opening in some limited capacity, just because I think the community needed it. Youth sports, I was on conference calls with all of our leaders we have just great programs here in Twinsburg, but all those leaders trying to figure out how to get the kids outside playing sports with all the restrictions and everything going on. And then our senior center, we slowly started having outdoor gatherings for some of our seniors, because that's such an important, the social aspect of our senior center is just so important to that demographic here in Twinsburg. All right, we'll go into some department updates. Fire department, we've got Chief Tim Morgan here today. And our fire department really were our frontline workers with our police department. I mean, they were transporting and seeing COVID patients every single day, multiple times a day. My phone gives me every ambulance call that happens, and there's notes at the bottom that talks about COVID, still today, and so these guys, and they did a fantastic job of keeping themselves healthy through all this. I don't know I don't know how many, very few, a handful maybe, even had the virus during this whole time, and that's just amazing. I wanted to list the department. I know it's kind of small, probably hard to read, but we've just got, it's a large department with a great group of guys, and I'm just extremely proud of the work that they've done for Twinsburg, and especially over the last year, because it's been really challenging. When we look at call volume, they were basically the same as they were last year. We saw a little bit of a decrease of call volume, which is unusual, because if you look at the trend, we've been slowly ramping up our call volume, which has made us have to take a look at the structure of the fire department, how many people we need on shift, what does the administrative staff look like at the fire department, and so we're slowly making some changes to try to bring them back up to 10 a shift. Those are some goals that we have and we're working toward this year. Their fleet. So we talk a lot about dedicated revenue streams for our safety forces and a lot of different things. And this is one of the reasons when you look at the fleet, and people don't realize the amount of vehicles that they rely on and the apparatuses. We've got, if you can see up top, we've got 2 ladder trucks that are 21 years old that were bought at the same time. Those are $1.2 million vehicles. So that's a significant expense that we're trying to plan for right now for our fire department. The truck you see on the right is one that's going to be delivered here in the next few weeks, It's a brand new pumper truck, and it's replacing, you can see, the 27-year-old vehicle. This is an $800,000 purchase. So their apparatus and their squads, and we're trying to work to get them more squads. You know, our ambulance units take up a majority of their day, and that's where we have a need for additional vehicles. But those are $250,000 to $300,000 vehicles, so we're trying to figure that out and work toward that. We were fortunate to swear in and promote 3 firefighters to lieutenants. So we have Station 1 and Station 2, and we usually send a shift leader over to Station 2 to act as a lieutenant. And so as we started looking at that structure, we decided it'd be better to have just an additional lieutenant on each shift that would be assigned. So we promoted Chris Soren, Brian Laughlin, and Joe D'Ambrosia. And so I know they're going to do a fantastic job in that role. We were able to swear in 3 new fire medics. These were, a couple of them were part-time before, so we knew them, but it's just great to see the department. And you're starting to see the department, as it shifted from volunteer years and years ago, now these 25, 30-year firefighters that were part of the department are starting to retire, so we're starting to see a lot of turnover. So we had Matt Hayes, Hannah August, and Craig MOLEDOR. Police and dispatch. So going on to the police department, we've got Chief Noga here today, and you know, looking at our department, because I think people see a few cruisers here and there, but don't really realize the size of our police department. So I listed all of them. Again, I know it's small with between dispatch and our police, but they've done a great job also through COVID. How they interact with our residents and how they interact with people traveling through here has really changed because of COVID, and they've really got to protect themselves. And I know, you know, we had the department, we had a series of cases that came through that kind of impacted a certain shift, but you know, I think they've all come through everything good now. I put this emblem up here. So our department has joined Hudson and Aurora to do collaborative training. They're fortunate enough to be able to use the old Geauga Lake Wildwater Kingdom site. The abandoned buildings, they can simulate a lot of different things there. And the reason for that is that, you know, we do a lot of mutual aid between the different municipalities, and to have all these guys on the same page if a serious event happens is so important. And so I just want to commend, we have several officers that are instructors, and they partner with other instructors from the other departments. I was able to witness, went out about a week ago and saw they were doing some traffic stops in a warehouse in darkness, nighttime traffic stops they were simulating. And it was a pretty intense situation. They were using simunition, so it was live, everything. So it's great that our departments have joined and had the foresight to be able to do that with these other municipalities. Arrests and citations. So calls for the year are around 30,000. And that probably seems like a really high number to a lot of people, but there's a lot that goes on in the police department. I don't get those calls to my phone because my phone would be nonstop buzzing all the time. But you can see, just like any other municipality, Twinsburg is an extremely safe place, but we still have our arrests and felonies and different things that happen here in the city, just like any other municipality. And this is what was cited last year. We have a new police fleet. So every 3 years, we get new, our police cruisers and interceptors. The Ford Explorers has been a really great vehicle for us. So we were able to extend our last 3-year lease. We usually lease them for 3 years and then we own them. I think we got almost 5 years out of them. So by the time we turned those in and purchased the new ones, I think it was close to 5 years. The new ones we bought, the 7, are hybrids. And we're already seeing some great savings in the gas that they're using. I mean, guys that work weekends are saying, I'm hardly filling them up on the weekend. So hopefully that technology will continue to progress and allow for other vehicles in the city, but right now we're seeing some great results with that. We did purchase an F-150 for sergeants, so that's our sergeant's vehicle driving around town if you see it. It gives us just a different option in case there's a scene that we need to carry equipment to. So having that one particular vehicle was the reason we bought that. Olivia Bartulovic. So some of you in here may know Olivia. She grew up in Twinsburg. She was an explorer. She always dreamed of being a Twinsburg police officer, and we were able to swear her in last year out in the courtyard, 6 feet apart with mask on, but we did it. Yasso. So Yasso was our canine dog that, who now we have Caesar, but Yasso, we lost Yasso last year. So, and I wanted to put this up just to thank Yasso for his service. I know he was loved by the department. I know Officer E there who's bending down. This was on the way when they were taking him. His just hips and legs gave out. But he was a tremendous dog, and you know, and so I just wanted to make sure we mentioned him today. Engineering, Amy Moore's here today, has been really busy. You know, Amy has been, her department, through a lot of the restructuring, has lost 3 employees. So she was a 6-person department and is down now to 3. So, you know, Greg and Joe have just really helped carry the weight. And I know Amy's taking on responsibilities that she hasn't had before, but she's done a tremendous job here for the city over the last year with her limited staff. 2020 projects. We did have a road program. It was a little bit delayed, but we were able to get out and do our road program last year. Some of the other type projects, catch basins, different things did get postponed. That was part of the slide I mentioned earlier. The 2021 program, so if you live in the city here, you can kind of see the roads that we're going to do this year. So this is something that, you know, we budgeted for. It's still a limited budget. So when we look at roads, and I talked about this a couple of years ago in the State of the City, and we looked at the age of our roads in town. And so right now, on a budgeting standpoint, we're not putting enough money toward it to really get the roads on the cycle they need to be. So we look at about a 15, 20-year cycle on roads, and right now we're more at a 25, 27, 30-year cycle based on the budgeting we have. So we're hoping that as things change with the revenue side of Twinsburg, that we can start moving that number back up to where it needs to be. Some special projects that we had. So Timothy Hawkins was an area that we had a storm sewer main fail, about a 48-inch storm sewer main fail. So we had an emergency project to be able to replace that. That was near, of course, the main pond coming off the golf course. In the follow-up to that, we found that that whole pipe, as it led to another discharge area, was starting to get pitted and fail. So this is actually a liner that was put into the pipe and blown up to basically add a lot of years to that pipe. The left is a sidewalk, and I put that here because that's always been a goal of the city, is to put sidewalks everywhere we can. We're starting to do it in the business district. There's some things we're looking at in the business district to add sidewalks. This is a connection between Belmar, and there's a new senior apartment complex going, so we want to make sure we have sidewalk access there. All right, Public Works, Chris Campbell's here today. And from a service department standpoint, they had, again, a really challenging year. They had no seasonals, so all of the special projects that they do in the summertime was very difficult to do last year, because usually with 15 seasonals, we can throw them on mowers and weed whackers and keep, you know, right now grass is growing like crazy, and the amount of acres that they do in the city is amazing. But this is just kind of a little snapshot of what they did accomplish last year. You know, branch chipping, you know, we did 8 rounds. Leaves, there was 5,000 yards of leaves picked up and dumped. I know leaves got kind of crazy last year. We're still hearing about leaves last year, even this year. But I think it's all, I think the grass will come back, I promise you, where those sat. So this is just, you know, 300 driveways. This is something that a lot of people don't realize, that our seniors, we plow 300 driveways for our seniors, okay? We did 7 rounds of that last year. It's basically a free service. They pay, you know, depending on income, a very minimal amount. But it is a lot of work for our guys to do and to make sure we stay on top of, because a lot of them need to get out for medicine, they need to get out for doctor's appointments and those kind of things. Wastewater treatment plant. So statistically, there's some stats up there. Mainly what I want to talk about is the Reminderville project. So this is something I've mentioned in previous State of the Cities. So we now take the flow from Reminderville. This is something that we've been working on with the county for a number of years. And so they've shut down their plant, and it's turned into a lift station that actually takes it now to Twinsburg. We have the capacity and we have the future capacity, but what it's going to end up doing is giving us about a $300,000 additional revenue per year, and then we also got the tap-in fee. So this is an enterprise fund, and so within that enterprise fund, if it runs short, it gets subsidized by the general fund. So this is a great addition to the wastewater treatment plant. in that particular account because we're seeing that the plant itself start to age, and so the capital that we're going to need to feed into the wastewater treatment plant is going to be significant over the next 10 to 15 years. And hopefully this is going to help basically limit the general fund subsidy that we need for this particular department. Economic development, Larry Finch. So even in all of COVID, we did see some small projects go on here in the city. We had 2 new builds. So New Adventures is a daycare that's being built up on 91. You've probably seen it. It's still under construction. Pepperell Fuchs is building a 50,000 square foot office building. O'Reilly is finally complete, fully occupied, fully operational. That was a huge project. It was about $11 million in payroll. Safran was a unique company that ended up displacing a good number of their employees. And then they came to us and said, we're doing this around the country. What can you do to help us bring in another division to Twinsburg? And so we were able to work with them and bring in an out-of-state division that ended up shutting down there and shifting those employees to Twinsburg. At the end, their employee base is going to be about the same, but at least we were able to help them do that because in the end, we would have lost some revenue from income tax had the employees just been displaced, or there was a chance of losing that Twinsburg location to go out of state. So I'm glad we were able to do that. And then Sifron did an addition that's going to help their operations, and so that was an addition to that particular business. Cornerstone, I always have to talk about Cornerstone. So we're pretty much built out in Cornerstone. If you'll see, up top is the latest 280,000 square foot spec building that's going to be multi-tenant. My guess is probably within 18 months it'll be constructed and probably starting to be filled up. They have a lot of people that are looking to still operate here out of the Cornerstone project. The last building at the bottom they've got 3 tenants in there now. So really Cornerstone is completely built out, and we're excited about all that's happening there. Again, in the beginning, we thought that could be a mothball type plant when Chrysler shut down, but it's turned into this industrial park that we're extremely proud of. Will it replace Chrysler's revenue to the city? No, it'll maybe a third of it, But at the end of the day, it's better than having an empty plant sitting there on 167 acres, in Twinsburg. The CIC. So the CIC is still working toward redevelopment of our downtown area. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know about. We've got an RFP out right now, and we're expecting we've got some responses, so we're expecting a couple of proposals being sent to us. It's something that's just on the forefront of my radar all the time because I really want to see this downtown area redeveloped and just add some life and some destination to the city of Twinsburg. So we are still working on that. Since last year, we've got an agreement now with all the major landowners in there that, so we have a price for the property. So when a developer comes in, they can at least know, okay, here's my land cost, and then we can start working with them on trying to get really a project initiated. Here's our board. So a lot of the same members as we had last year. We have some new resident members, Angelo Carciopola, David Post, and Doug Holtzman. Great additions to the board. I know Matt Solera and Dolph Cayley are here today. Want to thank them for serving. Sam Scafidi, Bill Fury, and Maureen Stauffer are the council reps that are on there. And then, of course, Kathy Powers represents the school on that board. Building department, Keith Folks is here. And this is just a small snapshot of his day. He's also a department that's working with really 1.5 persons down of what they were operating in before. So he's had a really busy year. The inspectors that he has, I know he's working with one of them to try to get more certifications, but he's got the administrative side, and then he also does a ton of inspections himself, and so he's done a great job. And then one thing I just want to point out is, like our point of sale inspections, we're still doing those, and they've been able to do those remotely. So we literally get the resident or the real estate agent to go there, FaceTime, and walk through the house and the property and do the things that we need to do, but they're able to accomplish those remotely. I think we're going to probably start doing those back in person, but it's been a crazy year of doing that, but they've been able to do that. And then housing violations. So in Twinsburg, that may seem like a high number. I know we've been trying to be more proactive here in Twinsburg. In the past, I believe we were more reactive, meaning we waited till residents called and said, hey, this house next to me has grass, 4 feet high, and a house is run down, or it's got an old torn up car that's been on blocks in the driveway. So Keith has done a really good job with his crew as they're out going through the neighborhoods and making sure that our building codes are being met and compliant. And so these are the violations that were sent out last year. And if you look at also construction, I mean, we had over $50 million worth of construction that went on in the city of Twinsburg. Human resources, Michael Brown. We were able to steal him away from Cuyahoga County. He joined us in the middle of a pandemic, so I thank him for doing that. Colette, who was our previous HR director, retired, officially retired, and is now spending a lot of time with grandkids. But Michael has brought a lot of different innovative things to our HR department. And this is just kind of a snapshot of a report I get on a monthly basis. And it really lets us, on a more granular level, look at our employee base and really focus on some of the things that have been so important. Diversity has been a #1 priority for me since I started. We have a diverse community, but not a very diverse employee base. And that's something that we've been working really hard on. And so Michael and I spent a lot of time talking about these numbers. When you look at our totals, this was a December report, we were 164. That's down from probably 180, 182. So our numbers are down because of the layoffs that we've seen and the displacements we've seen during COVID. And then our employee base, our part-time employee base, is around 100. That could be a snapshot because those part-time employees, especially fitness center, kind of come and go with the wind. So these are some initiatives that he's working on. So recently, Michael ended up creating and doing a complete diversity and inclusion training for every employee in the city. And so this was some of the things that he wants to focus on coming forward in terms of employee training. So I'm really excited about what we may be able to bring to our employee base from a training level that are not firemen or policemen that are forced to do that type of training special for their department. These are things that across the city we need to encourage for all of our employees. Succession planning. As we see our employee base age, we need to spend more time planning for who's going to take over those roles if it's within our department. A performance evaluation program. The city has different departments, have different ones, so we're trying to look at something that's kind of consistent across the whole city. Our wellness program, we've redesigned that. We now have a platform that's an app-based platform for our employees. So we're going to be rolling that out this year. And hopefully that'll be something that can help increase participation. So it's something we're really looking forward to. Our city health plan is something that I've talked about every single year. We've now got to a situation where we're going to be self-insured. March 1st, we are now self-insured as an employer. We've never been that in the past. When I took over, we were 126% claim ratio, which means the insurance company was paying out 26% more than what we were paying them, which was a very difficult place to be in. Over the years, we've gone from 126 to 94 to 80 to 70. So we're hovering in that 60 to 70% range, which put us in a position to make this decision. So hopefully this is something, you'll see a slide later that talks about our expense on healthcare, but hopefully this is something that is beneficial financially to the city. Parks and Rec. Jen Benison's here today. She's taken over Parks and Rec. Derek, who was a long-term employee here, I think this is his first job and only job, got recruited away. I won't say the city, but that's all right. But Jen's been doing a fantastic job keeping Parks and Rec just alive because she's taken on a bunch of different roles with the fitness center and Parks and Rec, and now that Parks and Rec's starting to ramp up, I know she's getting a little freaked out here about how to handle all of it. But she's got a great crew. The fitness center. Usually I have pictures of people working out, our classes going on. This is really what's happening at the fitness center right now. If you talk to any people that are members, they'll tell you that this is probably the cleanest facility that you could work out in. I mean, we have guys, we shut down every single day at 1 o'clock. We fog everything with a Clorox 360 machine. That's the one down in the bottom. we're mopping everything, and everyone's participating. Tyler is the manager of our field house, and he's mopping. Dave Schilling, you've got Ty, Tom Alder, Tom Veda, all those guys, custodial work there, have really chipped in to make sure that, I mean, all hands on deck at 1 o'clock, and they're cleaning, wiping down everything, spraying everything, and it's a big, it's a big facility, so they do that every single day, before it opens, after it closes, and then at lunchtime. Waterpark, Brandon's here. Again, like I said earlier, he did a great job of setting up the ability of us to open our water park. Here's our lifeguards, all masked up, but we ended up taking reservations. So to go to the water park, you had to make a reservation, and we had a limit. So what you're seeing on the right is a full day at the water park last year, which is really depressing to me. I mean, I love when kids are running around screaming, on top of each other in the pool. I mean, it's just one of those things where it was tough going there a couple of times and seeing it being so quiet and calm. But I know the residents, I got tremendous feedback from the residents that they truly appreciate the fact that we actually opened up. A lot of pools didn't, but we at least provided for some of the residents the ability to get outside. This was something that was kind of in the heart of COVID, but we decided to do. This was a drive up that we allowed parents in their cars to take pictures with the Easter Bunny. We gave them all candy. I think we had about 150 cars come through. So it was a great event. I think the kids were just thrilled to just get out of the house. But it ended up being just a really fun event last year. It was one of the first times that I think all of us kind of got to interact with the public again. So we were thrilled to be able to do that. Drive-through with Santa. So we took Fire Station 2 and we turned it into this kind of winter wonderland. I want to thank VMS. They did a beautiful banner that provided the backdrop for the photos with the kids with Santa. But we set it up where the parents dropped off gifts earlier, and the kids got to take a picture with Santa and then get a gift from Santa. So it really ended up being a fun event, and we had it all timed, and we had cars staged, and they came through, so it was all spaced out properly. But it just ended up, the Station 2 ended up turning to look at a beautiful place, but it was a really fun event. These are things coming back. So last year we had no summer camp. This year we're having summer camp, a limited basis, but registrations are going on right now. We're excited about what that's going to look like. Probably a little nervous about what that's going to look like, but we are going to have it this year. Safety Town is something we have been off, I believe, the last couple years. We're bringing Safety Town back. Our resource officers have agreed to teach it. In the past, Safety Town was a requirement, I believe, to enter into kindergarten. It's no longer, and so a lot of the municipalities that kind of faded away. We're trying to bring it back, and I know there's been some initiative to try to redo our little Safety Town area that we teach in, so it's just something that's coming back this year. And then, of course, the Waterpark we hope to have back in its full glory that we've had in the past, so I'm excited about the summer. Rock the Park. I know this is one day early, Jen. The big unveil, so you're special, you get a special treat today. You get to know what concerts are coming to Twinsburg a day before the general public does. So these are the concerts that we have lined up. So no pictures, please, of that. But anyway, so this is the concerts coming back, and I'm just so excited. Every day it seems that there's a slightly less restrictive measures that we have to take to have a concert. So hopefully by June, our concerts are going to look more normal than they were. So Glen Eagles, Brian Menard and Jim Roberts. There's two. He's our PGA pro, and then Jim runs the maintenance side of our course. We had to delay opening, so typically we do see revenue in March and April, especially April. April's a big month. That leagues start, a lot of things happening. We were closed completely during those months, and we started a soft opening type in May, and we ended up buying dividers in the carts to separate people. We started spacing out tee times. Sometimes we would do one to a cart. So it was a lot of just, the amount of rounds we could get in May was very limited. However, at the end of the year, we had one of the best years that we've ever had at the golf course. We had 33,000 rounds, 1.1 million in revenue. Driving range revenue was up from 45,000 to 85, so it doubled, but it was a really, really good year, and we're expecting that again this year. I get a lot of questions about the golf course. There's a lot of information out in the public about the golf course. So I kind of just want to talk a little bit about the history of the golf course, and I'll try to be brief. But it was bought in 1995 under Mayor Carbeck's administration. From day one, there was a discussion about a new clubhouse. We were operating, if any of you had been to it, we're operating out of a kind of a temporary structure that got kind of added onto. And by the time we built this, I'm not sure the restrooms were even working properly in that particular building. So it was something that we needed to do. And I think that administration, prior to me, and I was on council, so we were all trying to make decisions, is what type of facility do we build? The community was talking about additional venues for events. They were I always hear, every day I hear, I wish we had more restaurants in Twinsburg. And so I think we all took that in when we first started looking at this particular facility to try to meet some of the needs that the residents were asking for. So when we built this, one of our decisions that we had to make, and in hindsight was probably not a good decision, but we decided to run the food and beverage operations here. It's something that I had never done, and most cities don't do, but it was a challenging thing that we were looking at, trying to balance of giving up that particular revenue, giving up our liquor license, control of our liquor license, a lot of different things. So when we decided to run it, we ended up keeping and developing A&M and running the banquet side. And the restaurant business is a very tough business. And I've now realized that the people that do that and know how to do that are the ones that should be running it. So I'm glad that we are out of that business now. We've got a great partner. It's the group that runs Burntwood. So if you haven't been to Aaron and Moses, the Burntwood group is running that and have done a fantastic job. Operations side, if you look at golf as a separate sector, last year, from an operations standpoint, the golf side basically broke even. And so we're looking forward to hopefully a year of that again, as well as now that we've got a tenant in our restaurant paying rent, hopefully from a subsidy standpoint, we can start seeing it change. So historically, if you look at our subsidies, and the golf course has always been subsidized from day one, since 1995. We've always subsidized the golf course from our general fund. It's ranged on the average of around $100,000 a year to $300,000 a year. Probably the average is probably closer to $300,000 from historically. This is a snapshot of the last 10 years, so you can see how it's moved up and down depending on potentially capital projects, different things that need to be done. You see it spike up during the year of construction, and when we took over the restaurant and the side of things and the building of the clubhouse. However, if you look in 2019, it decreased. 2020, it decreased. And then right now we've budgeted for a subsidy of under $200,000. And that's important to me because I think that's my first goal with this operation here, is to at least get us back to the subsidy that we've always had for the previous 25 years. And that, and with that, if we can do that with a $7 million building here, then I think that's the first step toward getting this enterprise fund back to break even. But that's going to be a big goal for us. If we can consistently see under $200,000 worth of subsidy and still have this facility to offer to the residents and the course that we offer. This course was ranked the second best public course in Ohio by a magazine about a month ago. So we're really proud of this course, and we want to make sure it stays healthy. Finance department. Sarah Buccigross is here. I wouldn't make you stand up, but that's all right. It's been a really challenging year for Sarah and her crew. Jennifer, Karen, and Brenda, they've all done a great job just keeping things in the city moving in the right direction. General fund is something we always focus on when we look at our balances. Last year, we were able to grow our reserves. It's the first time in a long time. If you go back to 2009, 2009 is when Chrysler closed and we had the 0.25% tax increase. As you can see, we slowly started increasing reserves. In 2009, 2010 was the first real hit when we felt that 0.25%. And then in 2014, the 0.25% was repealed. So it was about a $3 million loss in revenue. And so when you look at between 2013 and 15, when I took office, there was about a $6 million loss in revenue over those 2 years. So it was really challenging times. Our employee base hadn't changed. Our expenses had all gone up, and our revenue had decreased significantly. We had major projects, road projects that we were committed to, and that's where you see the significant decreases in the reserve balance both in 15, 16. As we got through those projects and we started really working on squeezing the operational side of things, we were able to decrease that. So you see 2.7, 2.2, 2019 was 212,000. So the problem we have is we can't continue to do that. Our employee base is like 60%, our services we offer like 60% of our business. Every year we give cost of living increases, and we've continued to do that. So as that part rises, I have to balance, we have to continue to squeeze the operational side of things and all those expenses, and we can't continue to do that. I'll talk about the tax levy we have on the ballot later, but that's one of the reasons. We were able to see a $3.7 million increase in our reserves. Part of that was from some of the COVID impact money that we received, and then a lot of it was from the reductions that we took. So when you look at our total balance, we were able to grow our total balance the last couple of years, okay? So in basically 2019 and 20, and that's just because of a lot of that money that we received and some of the reduction in costs that we took during COVID. When you look at our spend, and this is where I was talking about, we took a 10%, so a $30 million budget in the general fund. When you take a 10% reduction in that, that's about $3 million. So that increase in reserve matches up with the reduction of spending that we did in 2020. But historically, I put this up here because I want you to see that consistently we've stayed in that $27, $28, $29 million range. There's not a huge amount of fluctuation, but at the same time, 60% of my budget has gone up 2 or 3% because we're giving raises and our salaries and wages are increasing. So again, it's difficult to balance those. Healthcare expense. I mentioned it earlier. This is just a big expense. I always highlight it. 2012 to 2020, we're now $1.5 million difference, offering to the same employee base, the same coverage, but it's just an additional expense to the city that we incur. And so hopefully it being self-insured, we're going to be able to see that go the other way. But you can see we were trending in the 15 to 12, 13% range when I took over and we started really educating the employee base. They're the ones who did it. It wasn't me, but starting to get those claim costs down, we started to experience a little bit softer increases, but there is, I think 1 year we had the decrease, and that was 2018. But again, it's challenging to get an insurance company to not, they start off at 15% every single year, no matter how well you've done. Salaries and wages. So this is kind of what I was talking about, and this is where we spend our salary and wage dollars. All right, so a majority of it is $7 million, and when you look at safety forces as a total, that number is closer to $11 million that we spend out of the general fund, so a third of our budget. And then of course you've got service department, wastewater, and then on down to the smallest budget being Parks and Rec. From a number standpoint, here's our salary and wages. And again, we had that staff reduction in 2020. That's why we saw a decrease for the first time. So it's just climbed up every single year. And again, this is basically the same employee base from 12 to 19, okay? But you've got $3.5 million difference in salaries. That increase just continues to go up year after year. Income tax. So again, when we talk about 2009, with the 0.25%, we saw that increasing, and we were seeing growth in our business area and our industrial sector also. We're now about 97% occupied, which is great for a city, but it limits our growth. So from a growth standpoint in our business and industry sector, we're not going to see a lot of that over the next, decade or so because there's no more land. Once the 0.25% fell off, we started to see that decrease. Again, 2015, it bottomed out. That was the year I took office. And then we started to see it slowly climb back up. And then, of course, COVID hit 2020. We're starting to see the decline. Currently, we're probably $700,000 down just this year. And so, that was the decrease we saw last year. Debt service. So I've never really talked much about our debt. So the city has very low long-term debt. We've had certain bonds, we might carry
$6 to $10 million over a period of time. And you know, when I talk about long-term debt, I'm talking about long-term bond obligations. We do have interest-free loans that we use for different infrastructure projects, but long-term debt, you can see we've got different bonds that are now rolling off. So when I talk about debt service, the amount that we're spending on an annual basis out of our budget to pay for long-term debt, okay, we're going to see a spike this year, and then we have these bonds falling off. And so by 2023, we're actually even with the purchase of the clubhouse being part of that, what we're going to see is a reduction in our budget from our long-term debt service, okay, by about $200,000. So, you know, I know there's a lot of, what the right word is, conversation in the community about this clubhouse is bankrupting the city and the clubhouse this and the clubhouse that. Well, the clubhouse has not been the cause of our financial issues. You know, when we bonded it out, we repaid the general fund $1 million. And then from a long-term service obligations that we have, by 2023, it's going to be $200,000 less than what we were in previous years. So I just wanted to show that because I don't know that I rarely talk publicly about the city's debt, but we have extremely low debt, and it's something that we want to maintain. COVID relief spending. So these are some of the funds that we received from COVID relief. We were able to use a lot of it, I believe 15% and 25% for police and fire, salaries and wages and dispatch. We did receive certain money that was targeted for COVID-specific projects. So these were some things that we did here in the city between grants, and we have temperature-taking kiosk, and we were able to put in some touchless stuff that helps reduce the spread of COVID. Different things that we were able to do with that particular money. There's been a lot of talk about the American Rescue Plan, and so right now it's really unknown. We're not sure exactly how much we're going to see. We've been told 3.7, but then that was before townships were brought into the conversation. The original plan didn't provide any money to townships. And I know they've been lobbying, and it looks like they're going to be successful. So I'm sure that that money is going to impact what we're going to receive, what's going to be paid to the townships. But when we look at the American Rescue Plan, there's really 4 pots of money that or 4 ways it can be spent on. Hazard pay for essential workers. So we're still waiting on what defines an essential worker and what are some of the criteria that we can pay essential workers hazard pay. Water, sewer infrastructure. So those it's a very specific way that we can spend that money. Business grants, and then loss of income. And again, I mentioned earlier, we're $700,000 year to date down in the city. Issue 2. So issue 2 is a tax levy that's currently on the ballot. It's a 2.4 mil levy. Our city is ranked 30th out of 30 cities in Summit County. We have 0.6 of 1 mil that operates that helps any of our general fund operations. We have no voted tax levy. All right, this is just charter levy that we're forced to have in place by statute for police and fire pensions. So 0.3 goes to police, 0.3 goes to fire. That is all the help we get from property tax. We are 85% dependent on income tax. So when COVID really hit and they started showcasing Columbus at 70% and all these cities around Ohio, how dependent they're on income tax, I was kind of laughing going, well, we're 85%, you know? And that's when we started scrambling and figuring out ways we can reduce costs. And so when we look at the 2.4, it's just a small piece of the puzzle that the city needs, but it's a stable revenue stream that doesn't get impacted by tremendous upturns and downturns in the economy. And so, you know, we've dedicated this particular 2.4 mil levy to police and fire. So it's going to go strictly into the fire pension account, police pension account, and there's a capital account that's being set up for police and fire capital. So it's one of the things that is extremely important to the city. Last year, it's going to provide about $1.7 million in revenue. Last year, council authorized a 2-year plan of 4.9 mils of our charter millage, thus the creation of issue 24. This was a resident-driven petition that basically took our charter millage from 7 to 2. At 10,000 votes, it passed by like 200 votes and ended up reducing that. So the plan that was enacted last year went away. We removed it. The 2 mills that remain, 0.6 of that still going to police and fire pension. But when you look at credit rating and financial stability, it's good to have charter millage and inside millage available. So we're not touching that right now. And so that's why we're seeking voted millage from the residents. But our charter was written back in 1973. And from 1973 until 1996, we used between 4.9 and 6.7 mills on an annual basis, okay, of that charter millage for just basic general fund operations. And I talked to a resident the other day that was a large opponent of us doing any kind of tax increase, and he didn't realize that we've had inside millage for years in the city. It was in 1996 when the high school was built and the fitness center was built. Chrysler was booming at the time, and there was a kind of a swap between additional income tax for the city. So I think we went from 1.5 to 2 in exchange to walk away from our inside millage because the school district was pursuing a levy. We wanted, again, we want strong schools and strong cities, so it was a good balance at the time. Now, it's not so good of a balance because, you know, manufacturing's now been replaced by warehousing distribution. Income tax base is a lot lower than it was. So, you know, giving up that just say 6 mills, you know, for us is a significant part of, would have been a significant part of our budget in today's operations. But historically, I just don't know that a lot of residents even understood that. And if you live out of town, you know, you might go home and say, okay, how much am I paying to the city for general fund operations? A lot of people just don't even look at it. But it's really crucial for a city to have a balanced type revenue source, and that's what we're pursuing with issue 2. If you have any questions about anything that I've talked about, and this is being videoed, and hopefully residents outside of here will watch this, but if you're getting information out in the public or on social media, which is even worse, I encourage you to contact me or contact a council person so you can freeze the video at this point and take down our emails and get in touch with us. But please ask us questions because there's so much false information that's being spread throughout this community about a lot of different subjects. And I just encourage, you know, the residents to take the time, spend some time with Sarah, with me, with your council person, and really get the correct answers. You know, council's been just a great partner over this last year. I mean, we've had some really challenging times, and the decisions that we've made to shut things down and to close things and to change our operations and the staff reductions that we went through, they were partners with me through this whole process. You know, Bill Fury's here. I want to thank Daisy Walker's here, Greg Ballin. I want to thank you guys for coming. And, you know, the work that you guys do, I know this is a very difficult job. Being a public official, you have to have very thick skin. You know, we take a beating out there. Social media and all that has added a whole new twist to this job. You know, I think Kathy, even before me, didn't have to deal with Facebook and all the stuff that we deal with on a daily basis. But, you know, it's great to have that kind of partnership and to be able to work together and really continue to keep Twinsburg kind of moving in the right direction. I want to thank my wife, who's here today, Sharon. I didn't get permission to put this photo up, so. You know, I usually have my whole family, but we're empty nesters now, so I said I'll just put us up. You know, doing this job, I bring a lot of stuff home, and if I can't count on her to help calm me down, sometimes she riles me up even more, but most of the time she calms me down when we have our conversations, because she can see that, you know, I've had a rough day and things have been eating at me. But it's so important to have that at home, to know that I can come home and have a place that I can vent and talk about things, but she hears it all, and it you know, it really helps me be able to do this job, because I love this job, I really do. It's been a really challenging couple years, but at the end of the day, you know, if I'm walking through Heinen's and I see someone walks by me that I don't even know, and they just say, "Good job, Mayor," and you know, that makes it all worthwhile and keeps me kind of coming back, because it gets really tough at times, and you know, this city is just such a great place to live, and we want to really do everything we can to make sure we continue to do that. I always finish with a Bible verse. It's the most important book in my life, and this quote from Romans, verse from Romans, really I think hits home. and I think it really fits for 2020. You know, it's very simple, but be joyful and hope. I think we spend a lot of time hoping for things because our current situation is not what we want it to be. But if we can be joyful in that hope, I think that says a lot about us and puts us in a different mindset, because I think usually we're in a time of trials or a time of challenges when we start thinking about hope and what we want to see happen. Patient in affliction. I mean, if I didn't have patience and thick skin, I mean, and the challenges that we have, that we deal with on a daily basis, I wouldn't, there's no way I could do this job. So I think this just helps guide me on a daily basis in life and the job I do here. And then faithful in prayer. I mean, I think a lot of us have spent a lot of time in prayer over the last year. It's been a really challenging year. It's impacted us, it's impacted our businesses, it's impacted our families, everything around us. So I think, you know, this was a verse that really jumped out at me as it fits into 2020. So I'll leave you with that, and I want to thank you for letting me speak to you today, and hope to see you all again soon.